Welcome to the Breakout Podcast, episode 3. I am Chad Vietaminis here with Bill Shockey. Bill, we got to go over some lottery and Sabres today. So a little bit of home cooking, so we should be in our comfort zone here.
Yeah, we found out who McDavid's going to go to. Yikes. And so also some coaches are coming and going, so we'll hop on that too.
Absolutely. So let's jump right in the lottery. So last Saturday we found out where super prospect Connor McDavid is heading. And unfortunately for the NHL and everybody outside of Edmonton, he is going to the Edmonton Oilers. So the Oilers win it from the third spot, which means the Sabres drop down to number 2 and will likely go ahead and grab themselves some Jack Eichel. And Arizona, unfortunately, takes the sad fall down to the 3 spot. So let's start off. McDavid in Edmonton. Thoughts, Bill?
Yeah, it's pretty brutal for the NHL. I know, especially here in the East Coast, it's the last place I wanted to see as a fan. 10 o'clock starts, small market, Western Canada. When are you going to get them on national TV? It's going to be when they're coming to the East Coast. I don't think this was good for anyone in the NHL. I will say that they are going to be a fun team to watch.
Yeah, I mean, they'll be a fun team to watch, but I get the whole 10 o'clock starts, on the East Coast. Another thing the NHL probably wanted too is they wanted to get themselves Crosby Ovechkin 2.0. Now, how are you going to have Jack Eichel in Buffalo, on the East Coast, and then you have Connor McDavid on the West Coast? You're not necessarily going to get a big rivalry set up there, no matter how you kind of try to spin that.
Yeah, no, you're just going to have to wait every 4 years for the World Cup and Olympics and see some international play, and that's probably about it. They're only going to see each other twice a year. Pretty much a big damper on everyone that was hoping for a big 1-2 punch for the rivalry factor. I know if you looked at it, with one ball left, Toronto did have the best chance at 36%. That would have been pretty crazy, huh?
Well, of course, it would have been fixed, though. You know that, right? If Toronto would have won that. But, yeah, I think that would have been that for me, was my number 2 scenario. Is if the Sabres didn't win, as crazy as would be as a Sabres fan, I would have liked to see Toronto win. Because then you got Eichel and McDavid with 90 minutes of each other. That would be the Toronto series at a whole new level. It would really be the best rivalry in hockey going forward for the next 15 years. Yeah,
it would have been really something to see. Sometimes, you kind of wonder why the NHL as a business doesn't kind of fix it. Not necessarily for Toronto but they got to. Sometimes you got to imagine they got to do what's best for them and what's going to make them the most money. And I can't see that as Edmonton even being top 5.
No, this had to be definitely the worst case scenario. Even when you watch that video of the lottery itself, you can kind of see Bettman's face when the guy tells him Edmonton, kind of just little, Edmonton, great.
Yeah, and again, 4 times in the last 6 years, great.
Yeah,
they've really been doing hot with those first round picks.
Yeah, can you imagine being that Edmonton representative in the room with all those other representatives, everyone just staring at you while you're just staring straight, trying to hold your emotion in to tell you, I want to get him for the 4th time.
I can only imagine he probably had those break-off windbreakers, just busted his pants off and had gold underwear on, dancing around in front of everybody.
All right, so let's kind of rein it back here. I think we're kind of getting a little off topic. But the Sabres, from a Sabres perspective, you still walk away with Jack Eichel. He's any other year besides this year was the number 1 pick far and away. That's nothing for Sabres fans to be upset with.
Yeah, definitely. Eichel was a huge prospect coming out. Best Hobey Baker winner, best college player. Had a huge year. Numbers better than Taves and Parise. First freshman to win the Hobey Baker since Korea. Definitely can't, be mad or not mad, but can't be upset or think that the Sabres got gypped here. They did what they were supposed to. They needed to get 30th, so they didn't end up like Arizona, and they got 30th. So here we go, Eichel, let's go.
Yeah, really quick step back from an Arizona perspective. We talked about this right after the lottery. From a business standpoint for Arizona, could this be the final blow? You're sitting there, the number 2 spot, thinking you're going to get one of these 2 prospects, and you have trouble getting fans already, and you think one of those 2 guys can bring some fans to your building, and then here you are, bam, you get neither, and now you have to sell Noah Hannafin, Ryan Strome, Mitch Marner, to to your fan base who doesn't really follow hockey that much anyways.
Yeah, it's pretty brutal there. I remember here in Buffalo when we were, all over McDavid, Eichel. Who are we going to get? We need to end up 30th. Just out of curiosity, if you went and listened to Arizona broadcasts, they're already talking about the Diamondbacks and what the Cardinals are going to do this year. And you could walk down there and said McDavid and Eichel, and they would have said who? They just I don't know. Just the fan base in general just doesn't have a good grasp on hockey. They haven't really embraced it. McDavid would have probably helped that. It would at least got butts in the seat, entertainment perspective. But jumping on that, I think recently I heard that Las Vegas is pretty much done deal. So that might be your move there?
Well, I think Vegas is more of an expansion. Personally, I wouldn't expand the league. I would relocate teams. But I think the Vegas thing, and even Seattle, I think Seattle's jumped over Quebec now with the way the Canadian dollar's dipped. I think after Vegas gets their team, probably after this season, maybe after the next season after that, Seattle will be the next team they would throw in. And it makes sense because they need teams in the West. They have 16 in the East, 14 in the West.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and actually that is the only thing that it will help, McDavid being out there. You're going to get a couple more fans in the West excited as he's going to go see them, or they're going to see him more often, 4 times instead of twice.
Right. Yeah, good point. So let's jump back to the Sabres here. So before the draft even came about, the Sabres made moves already. They didn't take long. One day after the season ended, as expected, of course, they gave Ted Nolan his walking papers. Yeah. So here they are. They have their top guy, the number 1 center, the face of the franchise for the future. Step 2, find a coach.
Yeah. How do you feel about Nolan getting tossed?
I think, I look at it this way. I always saw Nolan as more of a PR move. I think that he was a guy that they brought in, to keep the fans happy during this whole period of losing, I guess you can call it. Uh-huh. But I never thought he was long for the job, and I think, part of he had to know that too.
Oh, yeah. There's no way he didn't sign that. I think that, honestly, that's why he took so long to sign the extension. Remember there was like a 2-week period kind of where they said he had to figure out what he wanted to do?
Yeah, for the LaFontaine thing, right?
Yeah. I think that he went home and he said, okay, I'm going to get a ton of money, but this isn't going to be necessarily the most fun thing in the world. But, hey, I'm back in the NHL, and he probably never thought that was going to happen again. I mean, listening to local radio, I was surprised at how many people were upset saying that he got jobbed and it was horrible that they were doing that. And I will say I do feel like it was mostly the older fans who are just kind of like stuck in nostalgia. 15 years ago, Jack Adams Award, Ted Nolan's the best. He did have Dominic Hasek, by the way.
Hardest working team in hockey.
Yeah, so, I mean, how much of it was Ted Nolan? How much of it was Dominic Hasek being Dominic Hasek? He really isn't a big X's and O guy. It might have worked back in the 90s. There's no way it was going to work now. As you can tell, the team was destined for 30th, but he definitely didn't really help it much.
Yeah, I don't think that he is the guy long run anyways. Nolan's the guy that he gets the best from a team that's underachieving. And the Sabres are past that point. They're looking for the coach who could take them to the next level. And that's what it's all about now. It's not about last place anymore and, eking out wins, being a competitive team. They want to win games now. This is what it's about. This is what they've been preaching. You got your 2 years of bad hockey. You kept the fans with you. It's time to go win and time to go find that coach that can win games for you now.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, if you look at the way the team is built, they're going to go get some free agent, or mostly trades probably. Get some older guys that'll actually help them. Not necessarily like old, but late 20s. But they're going to have a bunch of young talent. And is Ted Nolan really the guy that you're going to want to be bringing up that young talent? They're not going to know where to stand or where to get the pass from, but they'll be working hard, and I'll take my chances elsewhere. I think the big point is you always look to get better, and you need to ask yourself, with the coaches coming out this year, if you get any of them, really, are you going to be better with them and not Ted Nolan? I think the answer to that is yes.
Absolutely. I agree 100%. So let's do this. Speaking of coaches that are out there, we're going to play a game. We're going to play role changes here. Bill, congratulations. You are now Tim Murray, the general manager of the Buffalo Sabres. And lucky for me, I am now a billionaire because I'm Terry Pagula. So I say to you, Bill, well, Bill, Tim, whatever your name is, I need you to give me your top 3 coaching candidates right now. Who are your top 3 candidates you would have lined up for the Sabres?
Top three right now. Do you want?
I don't care. I want your top 3 candidates, whether they have jobs or not. Who are you going after, Tim Murray?
Okay, I think top three. I'm gonna have to go with one Babcock, obviously, but I'll go McClellan, Bilesma, 2-3. I think Bilesma has been on the shelf for a year, but if you look at what he's done with Sidney Crosby, yes, he had Sidney Crosby, I know, but he also took him from the young age, like Eichel's going to be, and he brought them up. He also had a couple of years when Crosby was concussed and Malkin was hurt too, and everyone said, look, it's kind of like a Calgary. Everyone was like, look at the team, they're going to fall off, they're going to fall off. They never did. I think that was huge for Bilesma, and I think he's definitely itching to get back into the coaching. McClellan, you cannot argue with what he has done. Yeah, San Jose hasn't been totally great in the playoffs. I know, but their regular season, they're amazing every year. They're always getting into the playoffs. They're getting in at a higher seed. They just happen to fall apart, and I think that's more of just a San Jose thing than a McClellan thing. And then Babcock, obviously, is number one coach. I don't know if he'll leave Detroit, but if he does leave Detroit, I think I go, hey, T-Pegs, give me $6-7 million, whatever he needs, and I'm going to go shove it in his face and see if he'll come here.
No, we'll flip the roles here, and I'll be Murray, and I think I have the same 3. Babcock is obviously the crown jewel of the coaching market until he signs an extension in Detroit. There was always rumors that he wanted to go wherever McDavid went. Now that he's in Edmonton, is Bilesma going to go to Edmonton? I don't know. Or, I'm sorry, not Bilesma, Babcock. I don't think so. But I've said it all along. I'm still a little skeptical he actually does indeed leave Detroit. So my number 2 guy, I think would be Bilesma. He won a Stanley Cup, which I think is crazy for a guy who's won a cup, can't get a job in this league. And, my third would be McClellan. And when you look at those two, McClellan, sure, he took his team to the playoffs forever. I don't know. You remember last time San Jose hasn't been in besides this year. And McClellan's, under hot demand, but doesn't have that ring. And Bilesman does. And he's used to the pressure of dealing with a big guy, a big prospect. He had dealt with Crosby when he first came out. And he'll have the same thing with Eichel and other kids too. There's Reinhardt, there's Gergensons. Those are all top picks. Ristolainen, Zadorov. So I think Bilesma for me would be the go-to guy. And another guy I want to throw out there though is a dark horse. A fourth guy thrown into the mix that shouldn't be overlooked with his connection with Murray, and that's Luke Richardson. Richardson is the head coach for the Binghamton Senators. That's Ottawa's AHL affiliate, and he's moved along some big prospects for Ottawa. He's done a great job during his time in his 3 years in Binghamton. This year was a little bit rougher. It was his first year under 500, but he has a .535 win percentage, and I know Murray's a big fan of him, and that was even a name that was tossed out before he did give Nolan that extension, and I think that's a guy to keep an eye on because I think that's somebody Murray can definitely bring in for at least an interview and see how that goes from there.
Yeah, I hear you. I definitely heard Luke Richardson, like you said, years ago, and he was brought up pretty early again this year when people were under the impression that Nolan would be tossed. But I'm going to have to go no way here. I just don't see how – everyone was saying Luke Richardson, but I think that was before all the big guys came out. And if you look at what Terry Pagula has done, especially with the Bills – going big name Rex Ryan, I just don't see how he goes AHL team. Especially you get the big trade, Kane and Bogosian, and then you're going to get Eichel, and your team's going to be looking up and up. And then I just feel like if you go Luke Richardson instead of Babcock, Bilesma, McClellan, even like either a Tippett or a Julian, I think the fans here will just be like, what? I think they go big name.
Yeah, the only reason I throw Richardson out there is I think the Ottawa connection with Murray, and he knows how to handle younger players. So I think that's kind of how Richardson can get his name into the discussion, I guess.
I think Murray will help him in the future. I don't know if the timing and the connection's right for right now. Big Boss is going to have the final say because he's shelling out the money. And I think if he's shelling out the money, it's going to be to somebody he thinks is going to get him that ring and move this team along fast.
I think this is a good time to move into some of the offseason targeting the Sabres are going to have here. They need to find themselves a top 6 forward to be Jack Eichel's running mate. They're open for business. We know that. Murray loves to make the big move. He loves to wheel and deal. That's just his style. They have a lot of pieces. They got an extra first-round pick, which personally I'd be shocked if they make that pick.
Yeah, he's been saying all year how he wants to move it. So I don't think they're going to take the pick either. I think they're going to move it.
Yeah, so along with that first-round pick, they got an extra second from the Islanders. I think it's part of the Vanek trade still. That's coming back to reap benefits for the Sabres still. And they also have, you have arguably the best prospect pool in hockey. So when you have that deep in your system, that allows you to have a bunch of pieces to move out for that bigger player, so that guy that's farther along in your development. So I'm going to start with the guy we talked about earlier. I gave you a heads up. You know who's coming. I'm dropping the bomb right here, and I'm starting it early. I think Evgeny Malkin is there as a possibility for the Sabres. I think with Pittsburgh and Buffalo, the way those two teams line up with needs and wants, I think it's a perfect match. Pittsburgh needs to retool. They're on the verge of being knocked out again by the Rangers in a quick series. With Crosby, you don't want to go into a small rebuild, I guess. And I think if you move Malkin, it does a few things for you. It opens up cap space, which they desperately need. They couldn't even call up guys to make a 6th defenseman because they had no cap space. That's insane. And then it gives Pittsburgh some prospects. It gives them some youth, something they don't have right now in Pittsburgh. And I think they can spin it off as a retool instead of a rebuild by moving Malkin. I think it creates some sort of change in Pittsburgh. It's a bold, big move, but I think it's something that Pittsburgh needs to do. They need, even if it's not Malkin, somebody has to go. But I think Malkin makes the most sense here.
Yeah, when you texted me this morning, I kind of double took at the text, and I remember just thinking, what? But I've thought about it more, and I've kind of no. I just don't see it. I know you said that it might be like they might retool instead of rebuild, but I think if you're moving out Malkin, you're rebuilding. And I don't know how much Kid's going to go for that, and I still think he has a big say. I just don't see how that the GM, he hasn't made very good moves for their bottom 6. Their bottom 6 is horrible. And yes, they do have to get better at the bottom 6, but I don't see how you take a huge piece out of the top 6 to help your bottom 6. I think you start getting worked on the top 6 then. Yeah, your bottom 6 might be a little bit better, but the pieces you're going to get to help that bottom 6, are they really going to, equal out to the point per game in the playoffs or point per game basically over the whole season that Malkin gives you? He's still pretty young. He's signed for quite a long time and not a ton of money. I believe it's around 9, less than what Kane and Taves are just.
9's not a ton of money today.
Not these days. Kane and Taves just got 10, and it's just going to go up and up and up. I don't see how it's going to work. I think they will have to move somebody, but especially the way they've been going. They just fired Bylsma last offseason. They just got a new coach. I think the way that they're going to look at it is they're going to see Ehrhoff hurt, Mata hurt, Letang hurt, and they're just going to, whether it's for good or for bad, they're just going to tell themselves that they're riddled with injuries this year, and that's the reason that it didn't get done. Although their problem has been goal scoring, not really defense in this series.
Yeah, but you mentioned Ehrhoff. He's under a 1-year contract, and with their cap situation, they really can't afford to re-sign him, nor anybody else. They can, sure, there's other guys they can move, like, Kunitz. They can move him out, but
they have a ton of UFAs. They probably can just let a bunch of them go.
Yeah, but, you don't have the prospects underneath to fill in those spots. And I think that's moving Malkin can get you the cap space, and it can get you the prospects. I'm not saying it's going to happen. I just think that, again, I made bold, our first podcast, I told you people to trade Henrik Lundqvist. So I just, if I was a GM of a team, I'm not afraid to make those bold moves. And don't forget, too, I know you only have Crosby left after Malkin, but are we not really, Crosby's the best player in the world, arguably. So, I mean, I think if you drop off Milk and you still have the best player in the world in your team, you should be pretty well set going forward.
Yeah, if you go back a little bit there, I think you actually hit it right on the head. Is that uh, the GMs, they just don't have the balls, for lack of a better term, to make those big moves. You're looked at it through a fine comb. You make one mistake, you're gone. Unless you're Peter Chiarelli, well, he's gone now. But I feel like that the GM, he might get a call, he might talk about it, he might even get close to doing it, and then he'll just get afraid. Because if Malkin goes somewhere and tears it up and does really well, and the pieces he gets doesn't, see you later, he's gone. And I feel like with the revolving door that it is now for GMs, really, unless you're just starting off, it's just they feel like they don't have that wiggle room. They're too scared, and they don't have it to pull off those big moves without the fear of them getting fired. And everyone would rather make the safe move and keep their job than take the big risk and do well. But if they don't, they're out the door.
Yeah. Okay. So let's jump off a little bit. Jump off of Milken, I guess. Let's look at some other guys who may be a little bit more realistic. But I'm telling you, if that Malkin thing comes through, you hear to hear first. But let's look at some other guys. How about Ryan O'Reilly in Colorado? I think that's somebody the Sabres could target. They've been connected to him a few times. They can go after Patrick Sharp in Chicago. Chicago is in probably the last year of, I don't know, what can you call it, Chicago mode?
Yeah, just destroying everybody mode.
Yeah, once those big contracts kick in for Kane and Taves, people got to go on that team.
And if that's a possibility, we might jump back into it a little bit, but that would be one of my favorites right there.
Patrick Sharp?
Yep.
All right, so let's stop right there. Patrick Sharp. What would it take to get Patrick Sharp out of Chicago, in your opinion?
I think you're giving up that other first, which Murray wants to anyways. And then, I don't know, maybe, I just don't know how highly touted they really think Grigorenko is, but he's been talked about as Murray not really being high on him. So if he can squeeze him into a deal, that would probably be good. But then you're probably going to have to give up, not necessarily somebody you don't want to give up, but somebody that you kind of, you got to give some to get some. So
Mark Pysyk?
maybe I was going to say like a Pysyk or a McCabe. Pysyk's obviously the higher touted. I would prefer not to get rid of Pysyk. I think he's going to be good. I think he'll be your, 4, 5, 6 guy. It would definitely round out the D, especially with people worried about Zadorov right now. I'm not too worried about him. I think he's going to be fine. I think it's just
19 years old.
Yeah, a young kid being a young kid. But I don't know. This is the toughest part, obviously, about being a GM is even look at the trade he made. People were all like, he gave up Lemieux and
Armia.
Yeah. So it's going to be tough, but I definitely think, hey, if he can figure out a way, maybe pull a Duya away too or something, because he's UFA, right?
He's a UFA, so they can go after him in free agency.
So if you can get him and he fills that spot, hey, I would love it. I definitely think Patrick Sharp, he's looked very good. He had an up and down year, but he's always putting up the points. He's always a go guy. In the playoffs, he's been really good.
Yep.
And I definitely think he would easily slot into your top 6, definitely probably your top line. And Eichel, Kane, Sharp.
Yeah, how about that?
Has a nice ring to it. Back with a Kane, he couldn't complain about that, I don't think.
Yeah, exactly. I think if you're going for Sharp, it's going to cost you defenseman. It's going to cost you Zadorov, or it's probably going to cost you Pysyk or McCabe, like you said. You got to think from Chicago's standpoint, they're losing Timonen. He's going to retire. Oduya is walking the door as a free agent. So they're going to need some to fill some holes on their back end.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's going to cost you at defenseman, like you said, that first-round pick, and I think you're going to have to give up a prospect. Justin Bailey, Baptiste. Those are a couple guys. Hudson Fashing's out there too as a possible Comfer. And like you said, Grigorenko is an option too. And I also wouldn't put Johan Larsson past an option too.
Yeah, that's true. He was a center, right? So
yeah.
I mean, it's true. I mean, if you look at it, if you get everyone to project out, you'll have Eichel, Reinhart, Gergensen's down the middle. So Larson kind of is expendable. I would prefer him to be on the 4th line, but hey, if you got to move him, you got to move him. Because I would definitely, obviously, rather have Patrick Sharp than Johan Larsson.
Yeah, and then Grigorenko, he's another guy who it's hard to figure out where he falls in on this team. They're heavy down the middle now with Eichel. You have, if you look at your top three centers, Eichel, Gergensons, Reinhart. I mean, do you want Grigorenko as your fourth line center? I mean, is that really his fit? Can you play the wing?
Honestly, if I could just jump in real quick, um, I know that he might not project out to what he was supposed to be, where he was taken. He was kind of in a risk spot, which I don't mind in that spot. Middle of the first round, going on a high risk guy with high potential. I'll do it every time. That's fine. What I will say though is that if you look at like the Chicago's right now, I think it's time that teams will become even better once they stop giving lines like titles and like not nicknames, but once you stop seeing the fourth line as a checking line,
Yep.
you're going to be a better team. I mean, it's kind of silly. You talk about maybe like playing NHL, but the first thing I do when I get on NHL is, I mean, yeah, you need your checkers, but I'd rather put a couple, young guys that with speed there. They'll get around, and now your fourth line is a threat to score too. And if you get all four lines scoring, that's good. So, hey, I mean, if you don't move Grigorenko and he does be your fourth line center, that could actually not necessarily be a terrible thing. I don't really think you need a whole line that's just going to run out and drill people. If you get a couple of them spread throughout the lineup, I mean, Kane himself is a big body. Yeah, he's talented, he's going to score. But if you can get people like that, I mean, obviously they're not all going to be talented like he is, and just sprinkle them throughout the lines instead of having one line that's just going to go out and be your energy line, I think that's where the NHL is definitely going to start to go, and I can't wait for that to happen.
Yeah, I mean, that's, what is that, LA's model. That's the way the Kings won 2 Stanley Cups. They had that fourth line that could score goals and contribute. And if Grigorenko stays, you walked me right into where my next point was, and that wasn't planned, but perfect. If Grigorenko stays, I was doing some research on some similar players, and what if I can get Grigorenko to be Josh Bailey for me on the Islanders? Bailey was drafted 9th overall in 2008. He's 25 years old. If you look at his average per season, it's 12 goals, 33 points. I mean, I don't think that's too much to ask for Grigorenko, for a guy to put up 33 points. And, Grigorenko's only 20 years old. I mean, the most he's had in the NHL is 6 points this year. But, I mean, if you were to take his season this year and put it out over 82 games, this is Grigorenko I'm talking about, he would have had 20 points this year, 10 goals, 10 assists. So, I mean, can I get 13 more points out of Grigorenko? I mean, if I can get Grigorenko to be Josh Bailey, I think that's a success, and I think that enables him to stay on this team.
Yeah, I totally agree. I've always liked the Islanders' prospects coming up. I was always wondering when they were going to bust out your Baileys, Okposo, not as much Nelson, but those guys. But I think the key to what you said there is, and I think because Grigorenko was brought up in Buffalo so quick, everybody forgets that. You're saying Josh Bailey coming into the Islanders 25, now putting up 30, 40 points. Grigorenko's still 2021. He still has 4 years until he even gets to that mark. I think he was just kind of, we were before, the Eichel year, we were always looking for that, who's going to be that next high-flying winger. Grigorenko gets taken kind of high, and he gets put on the team right away, and then all of a sudden everybody's like, oh my God, where's the 80-point season? And I think it was unrealistic for where he was picked. It was unrealistic for his age and his size. And I think that he is finally starting to see that because along the year he started to say, okay, I understand why this is good for me. I'm starting to realize why I need to listen and learn from the coaches and not just do it my own way, and that this is going to take time. And I think once people realize that and give him the chance, I don't know if it's going to happen here in Buffalo anymore because he's kind of been labeled. But I definitely think that's right. If people were to just stop, take a step back, give him the time he needed, he can probably be a Josh Bailey. And I do believe it, just like you said, that would be a success.
Yeah, and, also you don't want to be the GM who trades Philip Forsberg,
Oh,
so,
yeah.
You don't want to make that mistake again. So, I think, Bill, we did a good job. We covered a lot of Sabres talk. We talked lottery. We talked Sabres. So I think we kind of knocked it out this week, and it was, so we'll be back next week with some more NHL talk, probably the second round of the playoffs as we're wrapping up here. So thank you very much for listening. For Chad and Bill, we are out of here. Talk to you next week.
See you.